to the February 11th meeting of the Portsmouth Fire Commission. I ask to pledge allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of the previous meeting, which would be 25-012, approval of minutes from January 10th, 2025.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
At this point, I would like to make an adjustment to our agenda. I would like to move to public hearings. 25-013, public hearings for the FY26 proposed budget.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We shall pass the gavel to
Great, okay,
McQuillan,
thank you.
and then get out of the way.
The audio working, Kevin? All right, thank you. So welcome to tonight's presentation on the fiscal year 26 budget proposal. So perhaps it'll work. Maybe. There we go. Thank you. So the fire department's mission is pretty straightforward. Our core functions here are suppression, rescue, providing suppression and rescue activities to residents and visitors. 911 ALS response, providing paramedic care and rapid transports to citizens, visitors, and residents of the city alike, along with hazardous materials response and mitigating releases of known and unknown chemicals, and the marine waterfront, which we train and prepare for incidents along the harbor. When it gets to the core core function of suppression and rescue, we're looking at training, we're looking at readiness, emergencies, and awareness. We want to make sure that our staff is ready to go. And this is how a typical firefighter's 24-hour shift is spent, is doing these activities. The Fire Prevention Bureau, this is how we interact with the public and have the outward face of the fire department with respect to permitting, including plans review, inspections, and acceptance testing, cross-department collaboration and documentation with the inspection department. Education through fire and life safety education, demonstrations and consultations, and inspection. This is where code enforcement, life safety inspections, and compliance investigations occur. And then, of course, fire investigations when we do have fires or fire cause and origin. Another function of the fire department is emergency management, where we work on mitigation and planning with the other city departments, developing updates and to the hazards, preparedness, working with vendors and city to staff to update responses to man-made, natural, and radiological disasters as part of the emergency operations plan. Response, where we're actually responding to man-made and natural disasters, or the biennial response drills according to FEMA and New Hampshire Homeland Security around the Seabrook Station radiological plan. And then recovery, where we work with economic development and FEMA to help reimburse for losses that are incurred. So as we come into the budget session, this is the department's goals. We're looking to maintain and strengthen reliable delivery of essential and critical emergency, non-emergency services. We want to promote the safety of the community and the employees through comprehensive education and training, and provide effective, efficient, and customer-centered services. We're looking to minimize the risk of life and property loss through proactive planning, education, and enforcement of applicable codes and standards. So the fiscal year 26 budget I'll have 3 different presentations for you here. The original request that I had come up with prior to the council direction, then the council goal at 2.9, and then the comparison for the zero budget. So at the 3.5, which would be where I'd be at were it not for the council vote, this obviously maintains service levels. It covers our increases in operating costs and our contractual costs. We're anticipating a vacancy in retirement in our Fire Prevention Bureau later this year. And as part of that, this takes into account bringing somebody in, onboarding them to shadow that person, be it internally or externally, wherever that person comes from, to be able to take over the new role, because this is obviously an important outward-facing role, and that we want to make sure that there's no gap in service, and that the public gets the service that they are expecting. Additionally, we'd be looking to add a deputy fire chief, were it not for the budget goals that were set by the council. We've seen a real need to add another person in staff to help with support and to help with that succession planning. But more importantly, this is where a lot of the rubber is going to hit the road for our personnel. We're looking to increase our EMS capabilities, and we need somebody to help us manage that, plan for it, and train, whether it's rapid sequence intubation, whether it's pushing antibiotics for septic patients, or looking at doing blood transfusion in the field. These are the types of things that we're trying to look out over the horizon and see what's going on in the cutting edge of EMS elsewhere, and that we'd like to be able to do here and provide. Additionally, another goal that we'd like to accomplish with this position centers around the commercial driver's licensing for our personnel, to make sure that we can become accepted as a training center for the Department of Transportation, comply with all those requirements, and get our people trained so that they can successfully get their commercial driver's license to operate the rigs that we have here. So the help and the additional position, that's where we would be were it not for the council's vote. But that having been said, this also accounts for shift coverage accounts and recognizes the new contract rates and the leave trends over the last 4 years. When we move to the 2.9, you'll see that there's a difference on the bottom line here of nearly $100,000, but just over. But at 2.9, we're still going to maintain our services. We're going to cover those increases in our operating costs, both personnel and in our contractual non-operating side with respect to utilities. And then our succession planning that we talked about in fire prevention is going to be limited. We're not going to be able to have the luxury of having time for that job shadow, but we'll still be able to do part of it. We'll still have the increase, the 2.5% increase in the coverage line items, and take care of those leave trends that we see. And then when we get to the third option here, at zero, this reduces service levels. It's essentially going backwards. And what this means, a 0% budget means, is that at some point, taking fire trucks and or ambulances off the road. The simple way to put it is, if you look, 94% of the budget here is personnel costs. The only way I can make up any money to get to zero is through a reduction in overtime and not filling open shifts when they come in. How many of those shifts and when it would occur is going to be subject to multiple factors, right? With regards to how many people are out, what the trends are, whether or not we have any long-term vacancies, or whether or not we have any more of our personnel that are on active duty deployment. But it also, we have no room to go for an unknown, be it a major repair or a major building issue. There's no room in the budget whatsoever for us to be able to find that, other than to take from shift coverage. So when we look at the last 10 years of call activity, you can see that the yellow line on the top is the total activity, 6,667 runs annually that our personnel are doing. The blue line represents ambulance response only, and the red line represents fire only. And then the yellow line indicates the total, which is some incidents require a fire truck and an ambulance. So that's how that is tracked. We're seeing an increase in the amount of times that multiple calls come in, and that our folks are attending to more than one 911 call in the same period of time. And that trend dipped a little bit during COVID, but as you can see here, we've recovered from that, and we continue to trend upward. Additionally, between ambulance billing and inspection fees, the fire department brings in about $1.3 million or so in revenue. There is certainly an effort on our part to make sure that we're capturing these fees and that we're being reimbursed for the services that we provide. City charter permits us to be able to bill for these things, and that's what we do. So the organizational structure of the fire department at 2-9 still remains the same, with the 15 people on duty across 4 shifts, 24 hours a day. The three folks in fire prevention, the part-time mechanic, the fire chief, the assistant chief, and the administrative manager and budget coordinator. When we look back at last year, some of our accomplishments were the implementation of the full-time staffing of the 3rd ambulance, which was something that we've been working on trying to accomplish for the previous 5 years. We were successful in getting it for a good chunk of the year in 24, but we didn't get the full 12 months out of the budget allocation. We updated and adopted the city's local emergency operations plan, which was done in conjunction with all of the other city departments, and many hours of review and planning and updating. We received a grant for self-contained breathing apparatus and related accountability software. We trained and implemented this new system, and as part of this, we also moved up a program where we were able to issue identifiable radios to all of our personnel, so that we have the most up-to-date technology with respect to breathing apparatus and with respect to radios. Our radios are now identifiable by individual, so that in the event that there's a Mayday situation or we have a lost or down firefighter, we know who we're looking for, and we have the ability to monitor their air consumption rate, and hopefully get to them before we have a tragedy. Additionally, in the last fiscal year, we graduated 3 new paramedics and enrolled 2 more. We updated and completed the city's hazard mitigation plan and implemented a new scheduling software for personnel. Some of our fiscal year 26 initiatives that we're hoping to accomplish include continuing with the new computer-aided dispatch system and the records management system that the police department is working on. Get that integrated and up and running so that we're getting the most value and the most timely information to our folks in the field from that information. We're hoping to use the grant that the region received with respect to implementing and improving our training of company officers on fireground management. We're trying to plan for retirements and succession planning to make sure that we don't have a lapse in service, and creating a new method for tracking inspections and code review time. Right now, we have it fairly identifiable that everything gets returned within the week, within 5 days, but we're trying to find a way to track it a little bit better with the existing software and the new records management system that's coming on board, so that we can make sure that we can take advantage of whatever efficiencies we have and to get the public the service that they're looking for in a timely manner. And then, as mentioned earlier, we're looking to expand our advanced life support capabilities and become a leader in the pre-hospital setting. How we get there and what path we take will obviously be largely determined by the budget, but we certainly know that there are advances out there, and we want to be on the leading edge of this as our personnel do too. So the main budget drivers for us at 2.9 It's a $362,000 increase. And you can see the key line items that represent that number, with cost of living adjustments and increase in the shift coverage accounts. Because if we're paying out overtime at a higher rate, we need to make sure that we budget for it and account for it. Our workers' compensation increases hit, along with our health insurance and stipends. That largely eats up the majority of the $362,000 increase. And again, the year ahead, where we're hoping to be, where the rubber hits the road, we want to maintain our staffing. We want to increase safety for the public served and for our firefighters, and operate with some consistency across each fire district to be able to offer the same services citywide. We want to take advantage of training opportunities and have better trained staff and more visibility in the community as we embark on these training ideas. We also want to make sure that we're continuing to work on risk reduction through code enforcement and public education. Continue to work with city IT to make sure that we get the most information available to the firefighters and the ambulances in a timely manner, and leverage technology for better situational awareness. And we're always looking for innovative ways to keep the workforce safe and healthy. So at this time, Mr. Chairman, I'll entertain any questions that you may have.
If I may, could you tell us where the $1.3 million in annual revenue of the ambulance go? Does it come back to the fire department, or is it general fund?
No, thank you for the question. So that money is returned to the general fund. It comes into the city and goes to the general fund.
Thank you. I'm good.
That's the only question you have?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no questions. Is any? I'm fine.
Yeah. Public?
Thank you. I'm going to ask the public if anybody would like to speak. Esther, you're here, and Petra's here. How about asking questions, whatever you want to do.
All right, we discussed the budget right now, so we're
Yep.
trying to go through it quickly. I want to thank everyone for looking at the 2.9 and 0%. When you look at your budget and looking at taking the number of 23,000 as residents, that almost exactly $600 per resident. My concern is with a new bill, what does that look like? If we're adding, what the council requested, 1,000 new residents, what does that look like for you as a fire department?
With respect to call volume, with respect to all of it?
The
Nope.
additional cost, because right now, you're at
Sure.
$600 a resident. Exactly, it's $599 and 94 cents.
Sure.
1,600.
Pretty good.
For 23,000.
Sure.
My question is, with the increased potential in the new bill, what do you see as potential needs for the immediate future? And will this budget suffice that?
So for the immediate future, right, 1,000 people is probably not going to impact us in the short term, right? But continued growth, 1,000 people a year over the next 10 years, right? We're at 10,000 increase in our population, so nearly 50% increase. What that does to the call volume, we'll have to see, right? With respect to 911 calls, right? Whether or not that is a significant increase, a minor increase, right? There will be some increased activity with respect to the folks at fire prevention, to a plan review and inspection of the new facilities and bringing them online. But outside of that, I would have a hard time fixing a number, right? I mean, certainly at some point, right? You add enough people, I get where you're going, right? Like you add enough people, we got to add more help, right? But when that breakover point is, I don't know.
And then I know a lot of people are, and brought up in your slideshow, how there's always an ambulance and a fire truck going to everything.
Mhm.
even if it's a little thing at the mall or a little thing at, you know, I guess my question is, at what point do you evaluate that?
Sure. So actually, a fire truck does not go on every response.
Okay.
So what happens is certain calls are dictated that they're serious enough that it warrants additional help, right? But our goal is to get much like whether it's the Red Sox or the Patriots or the Bruins, right? To get immediate care to the person right away, right? And if that means that we move a fire truck because it's closer, because the ambulance is at the hospital, then everybody is cross-trained to do the same job. We carry paramedic on our fire trucks, same as we do on our ambulance. We have the tools and equipment to begin starting basic and advanced life support systems on scene. So that's our goal, is if the ambulance is going to be delayed or come from a different district, we'll move a fire truck. They're available, we'll move them. They don't go on every call, right? You know, for example, some of the lower acuity calls like broken ankles, perhaps a wrist, that sort of thing wouldn't warrant a fire truck. Difficulty breathing, right, does not necessarily indicate that a fire truck has to respond. But with respect to cardiac events, certain traumas, right, where we're gonna, you know, be packaging people and moving them, or quite frankly, if it's in a tight apartment building, then we have to move a fire truck to help, right? It just takes people to move the patient on a stretcher and all of our equipment.
And I guess my last question, I don't know if you guys have any, well, I have two more. One being, you're eating EMS. Given with the hospital, there's some of their potential change. We saw that recently in the news where EMS services might no longer be happening, even though they made a deal now, but that has been, I know across the nation, that's something that's looked at. What is your potential for bringing in revenue? Increasing that revenue?
Sure.
Maybe adding an ambulance will pay for itself. Out of curiosity.
So with respect to the ALS service that the other hospital removed, we were part of the regional discussion and approach on that. And as part of the solution, quite frankly, it didn't make sense to move an ambulance from this facility, the southernmost facility, right, to be able to hit some of those towns. By the time our folks got there, they should be moving to the hospital. So we did have these discussions with our mutual aid partners, and we have them often with respect to looking at how can we regionalize things and make service better and perhaps reduce costs on somebody's side of the ledger. So we've been engaged in these conversations, but at the moment, I don't have any opportunities to tell you that we're exploring.
So my last question is, I had the privilege when I was on city council a long time ago to sit on the decision-making to have this building and also to help design it. At that point, Portsmouth were giving a lot of services in mutual aid. To a huge percentage higher than other communities are. Given what I know of volunteer fire departments and whatnot, their volunteer numbers are falling left and right down to a small fraction and become real crisis kind of mode for a lot of small communities. I guess my question is there potential ever to start saying, we know we were giving mutual aid, but we get some kind of reimbursement for the fact that we have a department that is being funded by taxpayer money. And you are going to all these other small communities, whether it's ambulance or fire truck, because they just don't have the volunteers and people aren't volunteering or people are working a lot more hours. There's a lot of information out there about it. Where do you see that going? I know it's kind of futuristic, but at some point, I think that really needs to be looked at, given the number, if you listen to you folks on line, everything, how many times you are going outside the community.
Sure. No, thank you for the question. It's a great question. And I would say this, I could probably stand here for the next 45 minutes and expound on it, but I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version, right? We have a contract with the town of Newcastle to provide their ambulance service. They pay us $25,000 a year. We provide an ambulance to them. With respect to mutual aid on the fire side, right? Because it is mutual aid and we send assets back and forth, we don't have the ability to bill for that and to recoup. However, I can tell you that at the fire chief level regionally, we have these discussions often with respect to trying to make it easier and regionalize things, because to the greater point here, right? There are less and less call and volunteer firefighters, and they're relying on their bigger brothers, so to speak, to bail them out, because they don't have that ability to train, attract, and recruit people to do a job for nothing, right? They just don't. So as we're getting called more and more, some of the discussions that we're trying to force, right, is exactly that, is regional. When do you call us and for what? And it's not a threat in that, it's not a threat to the Portsmouth Fire, right? We'll be the ones moving into these other communities and doing their work. But it's also, for me, it's a safety component, right? Because if I'm sending the truck from this fire station to a neighboring municipality that only has 2 people on duty in the overnight, I've got a real concern, right? With respect to their health and well-being when they're at a fire. And so we're working on that and trying to make sure that we send enough people that we can do some help, but also not get our folks put into a position where they're asked to do something that could hurt themselves. So it's a very, very short answer to a very complex problem that I'm happy to talk more with you about.
I foresee it gonna be a big conversation for the very near future, because anytime you send someone, some of these smaller communities that don't have people, and you're talking overtime, you're talking a lot of expenses.
Mhm.
Taxpayer in Portsmouth that necessarily isn't getting recouped in the small, and I know it's not this year.
Right.
Working in Guilford, I know that's a conversation
Mhm.
there, because Guilford has a pretty poor fire department, a lot of communities down there do that. So I know it's happening across the state, but at some point, I think that needs to be a serious discussion.
And the ALS solution, right, was the step in the right direction, where you had one municipality, the town of Plastow, step up, bring on staff, and now they're going to charge those other places, right, in a way to be able to recoup some of those costs, but still provide the services.
And at some point, I think probably will happen before.
There's, right, the framework's there with respect to an intermunicipality agreement, right? And now we just got to get the political will to do so. Yeah,
I want to thank you for the handout.
Sure.
I just look at it quickly. I was hoping to see what you actually spent in FY '24, but it's not on here.
No.
So I'll just question, I have some questions on the 3.5 to the 2.9. First question, since we don't have staffing, are you fully staffed now?
yes,
Okay, so if I'm reading this right, the 3.5 that you originally had down to the 2.9, does that mean you are foregoing, or you will have to forego basically 2 ads here? This fire prevention deputy and then a deputy of training?
so it's one full-time ad. It was going to be a part-time ad to bring somebody into fire prevention for a longer period of time to make that transition. Again, not knowing whether it's internal or external, right?
So, and then you move on there, this is just me not knowing, if I go to 0% increase, it says shift coverage reduced and companies round out.
Yep.
Could you please explain what that means?
Sure. So we have 5 people on duty at each fire station. If under the 0% budget, right, if at some point I need to make up money, the only place I can make it from is from the overtime and the coverage account line items. So for the night, instead of having 5, I may only have 4, or I may have 3, right? Which means that something is not moving, probably an ambulance, right? And then at some point, if we couldn't make up enough by closing an ambulance or browning it out temporarily from shift to shift, then we look at station closure for a hard period of time.
So, based on that, from my brief analysis that I could do here, I had looked at what you actually spent in FY '23 compared to '24 and '25.
Mhm.
So, questions that came out of that for my mind to ask if you had to make up for the brownout. Would you be able to go to something like, miscellaneous supplies or, vehicle repairs? It seems on a lot of your line items, especially in admin.
Mhm.
You also had a big boiler come in there.
So, yeah, we had in this building, we had a boiler fail. And as a result, right, it was not insured. So that's where the money came from, is we took it out of operating, right?
No CIP, no.
Well, it was an emergency repair, like I didn't have heat in the building kind of thing,
Right,
right? So, yeah,
so it didn't go back to City Hall to say, you know, you have a contingency here.
so no, it did go to City Hall. I said, this is my plan. I'm requesting to transfer the money up to use from operating to use for capital expense to make sure I can keep the building open and heated.
Bottom line is they made you take the hit.
Correct.
I guess those would be the questions I had. The only other things, that I did notice, especially on the firefighters, and, help me understand this one, on the holiday premium.
Mhm.
In FY '23, you budgeted, 168, you spent 156, and then you took it up to 223. So what would be the difference between what you actually needed?
Yep.
Because I don't know what 24 was.
Sure.
And what you actually are budgeting.
So when you're looking at FY '24, part of the issue there was we weren't fully staffed. Right? So I didn't have a full complement of firefighters that worked or didn't, that were owed the holiday pay. And then the second part of that discussion or equation, right, is that since then we've had cost of living adjustments, step increases, that then affects that holiday pay, right?
Okay, I guess the only other, things I could say to help you out here if you had to go down to zero would be, maybe there's a lot of equipment purchases and stuff in here that I don't know what it is. I
Yeah.
mean, if it's, low level, just they had to have it kind of things, but, other than that, I don't know what else to even suggest to help you.
I agree, like, the majority of our big purchases are capital expenses, right? What we try to do is, some of the stuff it gets beat up and wear and tear and we have to replace it, hose. I don't need to replace all the hose in the department all at once. But certainly as it fails, as it rips, tears or whatever, there's a line item, which again, I can't predict it, right? How many lengths I'm gonna lose and so on and so forth, right? But that's the type of thing that's in that line item. Right, just to give you a hard example.
I mean, the other thing was electricity. How are you, we keep going up on that. How are you looking at that?
So we do an audit with with Public Works with respect to our usage, and then they tell us what they believe the rates will be, right? And they sign once the contract is signed. And then the challenge we have here is that this building in particular is very, very expensive to operate, right? There's an awful lot of lights that have to be on.
So basically, Public Works dictates the rates and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have one other quick question in looking at all the people speaking. Your cleaning, your pro service cleaning is up by 53%. Is that cleaning of uniforms or is that cleaning of the facilities? Because I guess my question is, we're finding a lot of custodial services throughout the city. And if we're paying that much money and.
So we don't have custodians here. The services that you're seeing are as part of our janitorial line item, but also for the linens and for the firefighters that they use for the linens, towel showering, right, and so on.
So it went up 53%.
There was a significant increase in our contract.
And then has that gone up to bid? Given the increase,
No, it has not.
is there opportunity to do that?
I suspect there probably is the next time the contract comes up. Certainly something we can explore.
That's significant, the 53%. I don't think that would immediately have gone out to bid for another contract of opinion on it, but I'm hoping they'll do that in the future.
Are there any other questions? At this time, we close the public hearing. Thank you, lady. Petra. After. And we will go back to, Bill, you want to shut it down and. Isn't that,
Turn off the display.
we'll continue on with the meeting.
Public comment.
Yeah, there's another line item here called public comment session. It's over and above the budget presentation and questions. So if there's any other questions that you need answered, it's now time.
One question, why did you shut it down?
I can hear you.
Why did you shut the computer down?
It's still filming.
It's still, it's right, what's up there running?
The screen behind it, that's all.
It's still being recorded. It's just the aggravating light.
I have one more.
Shoot,
The new one that came in at 35, the expense for software, 35,000
The expense for software, yeah.
or is this different than something that would be taken care of at City Hall by another department?
So that's our portion of the record management CAD system that the police department maintains. We're on their system for part of our services that we do down here. Right, so the 911 call goes into to the police department and they're it's entered into a computer and we're on that system.
So if this is new in 25 and 26, where was it going before? They just started billing you?
There was a line item there that was previously there. This is the increase for the new product.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
thank you. Next item is a presentation of written communications. And Bill,
Yeah, so you have a thank you letter from the Exeter Fire Department for our efforts on the brush fires that burned 21 acres back in November of this year. We sent crews for a few consecutive days to assist. And this is the thank you letter included from the town of Exeter.
thank you. And today, recognition of groups and or individuals.
Yes, so
How
this
about-
evening, we have with us tonight firefighters Reagan, firefighter Wiggin, who both recently graduated from the NEMSI paramedic program. And that was in the budget slide. You saw that we graduated 3 paramedics. They were there with another classmate, firefighter Zach Strzerzewski, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. But nonetheless, now that their training is complete, we typically bring them in to the commission and recognize them for their efforts. So firefighter Reagan and firefighter Wiggin, if you wouldn't mind standing, little something here to read here tonight. So paramedics, right?
Can we get them facing the camera?
Yeah, why don't you come on up and look at the camera for us? Right?
I know you wanted to do that.
Yes.
The camera's up there.
So we talk about paramedics and what they do, and this is where you know, our folks are at their best, right? Paramedics have to be a confident person who can accept the challenge and high degree of responsibility entailed in that position. They must show self-discipline, be able to develop a patient rapport, and have excellent judgment skills to be able to prioritize decisions and act quickly in the best interest of the patient. It is a paramedic who's held responsible for the safe and therapeutic administration of drugs, including narcotics, and is personally responsible legally, ethically, and morally for each and every drug that they administer, using correct precautions and techniques, and obtaining a comprehensive history from the patient, and being cognizant of the impact that all medications have interacting with each other on each and every patient they treat. And they do the most extensive pre-hospital care available these days. These firefighters here this evening graduated recently from the New England EMS Institute paramedic course, which is a 12-month, 1,200-hour program administered through L8 Hospital. It consists of 392 in-person classroom hours, 128 lab hours, and 800 hours, including 588 clinical hours, consisting of 250 hours in the hospital and another 338 hours in the field of clinical time and observation. They must also successfully complete all aspects of the paramedic program with an overall score of 80% and are eligible to take the National Registry exam. So tonight, the department wishes to recognize and congratulate firefighters Casey Reagan, firefighter Nathaniel Wiggin, and firefighter Zachary Straszewski, who again can't be here tonight, for their dedication and hard work in achieving their paramedic licensure. Thank you both.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. You, sir.
We really enjoy having you on board.
Thanks.
Next on the agenda, and thank you much. You don't have to stay unless you want to. Fire chief's reports.
Fire chief's reports. Thank you. I will call your attention to item 25016, the response report for the month of January. You may recall that back in November of last year, I brought to your attention the disparity with respect to the number of incidents that we were responding to and the way we reported it out. So you'll see it differently beginning this year and consistently moving forward. But that having been said, we did a total response of 557 calls in the month of January, including 239 fire-related calls and 318 ambulance calls. We did 8 calls to Newcastle on the ambulance, 296 within the city, and then another 17 mutual aid, which is a very, very high number. This is an outlier of a month for ambulance mutual aid, and I don't have any rhyme or reason to it. Couple incidents of interest on the 10th of January. Companies responded to I-95 North before the high-level bridge for a diesel fuel spill involving about 50 gallons. The highway actually had to be closed and traffic diverted into downtown Portsmouth for just over an hour on a Friday night during ski season. On the 15th of January, there was a one alarm fire at 2200 Lafayette Road. The fire was contained to the walls and attic area. We had the fire knocked down within 30 minutes. And believe it or not, the muffler shop was able to open later on that day. I have a thank you letter that we'll bring in next month from them about that as well. On the 25th, we sent companies to Dover for a single alarm fire, who were there rather briefly before returning. I have on here on the 27th of January, we had the earthquake that was felt citywide. And I'd like to take this opportunity to remind everybody that you should call 911 in the event of emergency and not to ask what was going on. In this particular case, the 911 calls literally flooded the dispatch center and bounced calls, and people could not get through as a result. So my public service announcement for the evening, call 911 in an emergency. Within just over 10 minutes, we were able to get out a reverse 911 message to all the cell phones and email to everybody that it was an earthquake and that we were, assessing for damage. And then on the 28th of January, we responded to Cass Street for a fire in the building. Again, this is the way we like, if we're going to have a fire, this is the way we like them, small and contained before any major damage is done. But we had some rubbish containers that were on fire underneath the porch. So it involved the porch and the siding on the house and the refuse containers, which was quickly put out before it spread and became a bigger issue. The safety message this month centers around heating fires during the winter months, that nearly half of all U.S. home heating equipment fires occur between December and February. and heating and cooking equipment that burn fuel are potential sources of carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide was last month's safety message. Make sure that all heating equipment is in good working order. And heating systems and chimneys should be cleaned by and inspected annually by qualified professionals. Keep anything that can burn at least 3 feet away from all heating equipment. Always use the right kind of fuel as specified by the manufacturer for fuel burning. And make sure space heaters are in good working order and used in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. Turn off portable heaters when leaving the room or going to sleep. And always remember to have a smoke alarm. Item 25017 is your disposition on fire district responses for the 239 fire responses that were done during the month. And item 25017 is the January calls, fire calls, and their disposition. And then on the next page, you'll find those without the EMS related calls. And then the final page of the report, of my report, shows you the runs by provider impression with respect to the ambulance responses for the 318 calls done in the month of January. Any questions as I take a quick breath?
Good, thank you.
All right, moving right into 25018, which is your budget report. Again, we're about 58% of the way into the budget year, and we're tracking about 64% expent at the moment. We anticipate at the current spending rate, and our projections have us at about a $98,000 overage at the end of the year in the black. And then on the following page, item 25019 is your overtime analysis with respect to how overtime was spent in the month of January. I'm talking an awful lot here tonight, so I'll take a drink of water and await any questions you may have.
Michael, you have any questions?
Shift coverage for military leave?
Yes, sir.
We have 2 firefighters out for that. Is there any anticipation of more going out, or are they coming back?
So one of these was a short term, and the other one is a long-term deployment.
So short-term person will be back,
Is already back.
is already back. Great, good, okay. Do we anticipate someone else going out soon?
As I speak to you, no, but
Changes.
out of our hands, as they
No,
say.
how about that? No.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope not, but
I have no questions. Mike, you have any others?
I do not like to make a motion.
Please do.
Like to make a motion that the fire chief's reports 25016 through 25019 will be accepted and approved.
I second that. Any discussion?
Good.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes. Staff reports.
The building security project is been completed at Station 1. We'll be looking at adding 2 additional doors here at Station 2. That way we can really seal off this side of the building. So it yields some purposes. Buildings otherwise are in good shape for the past month. Apparatus and equipment, the annual ladder testing for the 2 aerial trucks, as well as all of our ground ladders, was completed and everything passed without issue. Truck 2 went out of service today, and is going to be having some springs put in the coming days. So we're hoping to have that by the end of the week.
That's the new one.
That is the new one. And I showed you the new ambulance is still in progress. We're getting weekly updates from the manufacturer, so we're getting closer. Still looking mid-March delivery on that.
Oh.
Hopes of getting that in service mid-April, probably at the earliest. Our 2 new firefighters started 2 weeks ago. They've completed their orientation and they've now been assigned to their shifts. And in about a week will be a regular member of their respective shifts. Training wise, we've been fortunate that for the last 2 weeks, we've been utilizing the WHEB building. The owner there is planning on taking that down at the end of the week. We've been able to get some valuable training in that structure that we normally wouldn't be able to take at, as well as with our 2 new employees They've been able to get a lot of training opportunities out of that and get them through some of their initial objectives that we see.
I saw they were there at night last night, right?
They were
Yeah.
there, yeah, they were
Night
there later
training.
last night, yep. EMS training is ongoing. Captain Kenaway began this week. We have our personnel utilizing the simulation lab over at the hospital, which we have unique access to. And so he'll be conducting that with all 4 shifts. And then we're looking at having a class that's gonna be held here, sponsored by Life Flight of Maine, in early March as well. So we have some additional EMS training opportunities coming up. And that takes us into, we're just wrapping up the 2025 EMS recertification cycle. This of the 65 individuals that we have here, we have 38 of them that are refreshing this year. So getting all that through the National Registry, as well as getting their state licenses processed, is daunting, but we're nearly there. Who's my report?
Thank you, Chief. Pat, could you do me a favor? You always speak so softly. We have people in the room and this mic. How's it doing, the mic? Okay. Go ahead, please.
So for the month of January, you have the breakdown, as far as records created and revenue collected. And revenue was 12,271.35 cents. And that's for inspection fees. We issued 32 permits, 63 inspections. There were 25 prevention-related meetings. And then I made a typo on approvals not associated with the permits. It's not 2, it's 20 something that I can't recall. It was in the 20s. Few items of note from last month. Myself, Fire Prevention Officer Putney and Wheeler all attended the New Hampshire Fire Prevention Society's annual meeting. Fire Prevention Officer Putney was reelected as the president of that organization, which was that fire department, and Fire Prevention Officer Wheeler was elected to the board of directors. And I managed to successfully extricate myself from the board of directors. Also, Fire Prevention Officer Wheeler met with a reporter from Seacoast Online for a story on smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. That story has not been written yet by and then Fire Prevention Officer Putney and Wheeler did an interview that was on WMUR about CO alarms after the tragedy that happened in the state. They were just looking for some information. Fire Prevention Officer Putney and Wheeler provided that to them. And then finally, Fire Prevention Officer Putney sat on the oral boards for Concord Assistant Fire Marshal positions. So, part of the process to help them pick their next fire marshal.
That's good.
Who's my report for one?
Thank you.
Any questions?
I have no.
Thank you, folks. Old business.
There is no old business, Mr. Chairman.
How about new business?
I have an item for new business. I would like to make a motion to send the budget to the manager.
I second that. Discussion?
2.9.
The 2.9 budget to the city manager as in preparation for the cut.
I'll second your change.
Thank you.
Discussion, Mike?
I'm good.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes. There being no other business? No other questions? We'll close the meeting. Thank you.